Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show while I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before I may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, here we are. I hope that you, our cherished listening passengers and audience members, are having a very happy Thanksgiving Day. And that is a very important day in the long history of our nation. Although, in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively brief yet illustrious history. But when we look at the current state of affairs, particularly after we have gone through this most heated, contentious, and dare I say, personalized presidential election cycle of living memory, it is important that we, both as a nation and as a people, begin to put the pieces back together, that we use a day like today, in which we are so fortunate to be citizens of this great country and to be the beneficiaries of the greatest birthright of any people on the face of the earth. Of course, I speak of none other than our shared United States Constitution. There is a lot to be thankful for. Irrespective of what your political slant or views may be, you are born and endowed with the fundamental and inalienable rights which were endowed to you by your Creator, who happens to be none other than the God of nature himself. And that is something that we need to make part of a centerfold understanding of who we are, both as a nation and as a people, and what it entails for our future. And we know that in the arena of American politics, particularly as of late, there have been these forces of division and divisiveness. These forces who are attempting to implement the tried and true, albeit threadbare, tactic and strategy of divide and conquer, hoping to pit American citizen against American citizen, so that we tear out each other's jugulars and allow this nation to be bled to the point of anemia, weak, feckless, divided, easily conquered, and devastated. But that is not who we are, and that is not the legacy of who we are. And it goes to show that in the end, when you take a moment to pause and to look upon all of the happenstance that is occurring in an objective fashion, you can come to the realization that there is a greater good in these United States of America, and that we, both as a nation and as a people, still represent the greatest hope of liberty, freedom, equality, and a true sense of justice, more so than any other nation. And the reason behind this is the fact that we here in the United States are founded upon the natural law principles. Now, in the previous Solo Flight Special Edition that I did just a few days ago, explaining the real meaning behind the festivities of this Thanksgiving holiday, it spoke to that. In the first national proclamation of Thanksgiving, drafted by founding father Samuel Adams in 1777. Now, why would that period of time, which was right in the midst of that long, drawn-out, bloody affair known as the American War of Independence, still be of the utmost importance today as I sit here speaking into this microphone, conveying this message unto you. No one from that time is alive anymore. The world, at least technologically speaking, is worlds away from where it was during the late 18th century. But the whole attribute of the natural law tenets that underpin our shared United States Constitution and thereby our constitutionally endowed Federalist representative Republican form of government are immutable. They're timeless. They are, in that sense, valuable beyond all means, valuable beyond all description. And while this nation is facing deep fissures of division and the divisive nature that has been foisted upon us by the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, and while we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, we're not exactly thrilled that President-elect Donald J. Trump managed to clinch the nomination and then went on to victory, I do think it's important to give credit where credit's due. And one of the things that Trump said and did that I think is crucial is he had a Thanksgiving message today. One that he said that we are all very blessed to call the United States of America home. And he's absolutely right in that. We are blessed. He didn't say that it was the Constitution that is what makes us a blessed nation and people, but nevertheless, he did go forth and say a message of unity, and that is something we must give him credit for. Because I think that's exactly the sort of thing that this nation and the people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, needed to hear. And so I'm going to go ahead and cue up this message that he delivered, this Thanksgiving message, and then we will discuss it in further detail because it is important to hear it for ourselves. So here we go. Going to go ahead and get that keyed up now.
We are very blessed to call this nation our home, and that's what America is. It is our home. It's where we raise our families, care for our loved ones, look out for our neighbors, and live out our dreams. It's my prayer that on this Thanksgiving, we begin to heal our divisions and move forward as one country, strengthened by shared purpose and very, very common resolve. In declaring this national holiday, President Lincoln called upon Americans to speak with one voice and one heart. That's just what we have to do. We've just finished a long and bruising political campaign. Emotions are raw and tensions just don't heal overnight. It doesn't go quickly, unfortunately. But we have before us the chance now to make history together, to bring real change to Washington, real safety to our cities, and real prosperity to our communities, including our inner cities. So important to me and so important to our country. But to succeed, we must enlist the effort of our entire nation. This historic political campaign is now over, but now begins a great national campaign to rebuild our country and to restore the full promise of America for all of our people. I'm asking you to join me in this effort. It's time to restore the bonds of trust between citizens, because when America is unified, there is nothing beyond our reach, and I mean absolutely nothing. Let us give thanks for all that we have, and let us boldly face the exciting new frontiers that lie ahead. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Now, it's important to note that the message that he was starting there truly was one that was based on unity. He said that when the United States of America is unified, that there is nothing that can stop us, that there is nothing that can defeat us. But then, right in the midst of that, unfortunately, he mentioned the inner cities. He once again went back to the type of identity politics, the politics of division, and again, what it should be saying at this point is it doesn't matter whether you live in the inner city, whether you are of the humblest of humble people to the wealthiest of wealthy. By virtue of your status as an American citizen, you are blessed because of the supreme law of the land, which, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2, is none other than our shared United States Constitution. It may seem as though we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, dwell upon that too much. It may seem holistically abstract and disconnected from the concerns and facets of our fast-paced daily lives in this modern society. But it is so crucial, so important, so monumental in defining us and in letting us know who we are and what our purpose on God's green earth is. That's something that is unique to the United States. That is something that goes to that philosophy that tells us who we are and what we're doing. And it is important to realize that it's not just change that we have to be focused on. You see, that's the danger that we fell into throughout the disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. Hope and change without a driving force, without a moral compass, without a central philosophy is meaningless, because it can be hijacked by any passing political fad, and it can be utilized by charlatans and totalitarians to thrust this nation into a new era of darkness, which is something that we must wholeheartedly reject, because it does not reflect the better angels of our nature. The other thing I want to point out there is that he mentioned Abraham Lincoln as the one who proclaimed the one voice and one people for Thanksgiving. But that's not true. It was actually Sam Adams who said it first. And folks, one of the things that we have oftentimes focused on and oftentimes reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, is the fact that you have to know your history. That history is perhaps arguably the greatest teacher that we have. It presents us with a mirror so that we can better understand ourselves and so that we can look to the future with at least some confidence that we know where we've been, so that we also know what we are capable of accomplishing. That is a message that is lost. And it's unfortunate. Now, yes, I applaud President-elect Trump for delivering a message in which he prayed for unity. We do need unity. We need unity, however, not so much on political basis or on the basis of political philosophy and ideology as we do legally. You see, that's part of the problem. That's part of the reason why the illegal alien issue is so dangerous, is so divisive, and has wrought about such emotion in this modern era. It's because when you do the things that our federal government has been doing, turning its back on the obligations and mandates that were handed to it by the clear and concise language contained in the 4 corners of our shared United States Constitution, you begin to devalue the very definition of the United States as a nation and as a people. Think back to what it was that we said in the Pledge of Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. and that you pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands. Right there, it is speaking to this notion that the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men. That is the central creed of who we are, both as a nation and as a people. And therefore, it goes to the heart of the matter of what we are and what we are supposed to do. And again, we see that the divisiveness of it all has forced us to turn a blind eye on the things that matter. What is it that matters? Well, for the police officers that have been going through those horrific targeted attacks, it's to come home to their family, to their friends, to their loved ones, to live another day so that they may continue to serve the community that they have so selflessly donned the uniform of said community in order to protect. For the doctors in our nation, it's to try and to continue to treat the sick while having to go through the hurdles of the so-called Affordable Care Act that is decimating our healthcare system. For attorneys, such as myself, it is to go forth and represent our clients and ensure that the Constitution is adhered to. At least that is, in theory, what it's supposed to be about. But again, we see that there is a deluge of distraction, a deluge of fluff pushed forward by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media that does not relate to who we are or what our purpose is. And that has been the problem that we have seen to be just constant in this nation as of late. And the other thing is, we see that there are forces out there that want to obfuscate the truth besides the mainstream media. According to the Daily Caller, Rachel Stoltzfus put out a post or published a piece that said that another Trump-inspired quote-unquote hate crime turns out to be a hoax. And she starts her piece with, a Trump-inspired hate crime at a university in Chicago has turned out to be a hoax. An openly bisexual senior at North Park University claimed she was the recipient of a homophobic note and hateful emails following Donald Trump's win in the presidential election. But the school president reported Tuesday the notes are fabricated. Taylor Volk said she found a note taped to her door that read, "Back to hell," and #Trump, and included homophobic slurs following the election, as well as several anonymous emails with similar messages. And she reported the messages on her Facebook and spoke to the press about the incidents. "I just want them to stop," she told NBC last week. But here's the problem. It's not true. Volk also said she was confident the school would investigate. Indeed, the university's president announced Tuesday the notes were a hoax and that Volk is no longer enrolled at the university. He went on to say that we are confident that there is no further threat of repeated intolerance to any member of our campus community stemming from this recent incident. David Parkin, the president, or the spokesperson, at least for the university, said on behalf of the university. Now, folks, what this tells me right here and right now is that the drivel of identity politics, the divisions and the divisiveness have continued unabated. In fact, they're continuing to accelerate at an exponential rate. And this is not who we are. Again, this is not reflective of the spirit of the United States. So again, here we are on Thanksgiving Day, a day in which we take a moment to reflect upon all of the monumental achievements that we have grappled with and brought into fruition in our relatively brief yet illustrious history as a free nation. And it's important to keep in mind that instead of this divisiveness, instead of division, we must stand together, shoulder to shoulder, in solidarity and unity for the preservation of our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights as is codified in the Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments to our shared United States Constitution. Then, and through that mean, we can see a brighter future. We can strive to be yet an even more robust and free republic. But the onus of that duty, obligation, but above all responsibility falls squarely on our shoulders and our shoulders alone. No one else is capable of doing that. And again, it speaks volumes as to what it is that we have faced, both as a nation and as a people. And there's another thing that needs to come up here. We see that Ann Coulter, just a couple of days ago, about 2 days ago, that there was this Tuesday report that Donald Trump was considering South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley for the position of Secretary of the United Nations. Now, yes, there are plenty of reasons to not applaud Nikki Haley. There are plenty of reasons to particularly take issue with her. The way that she handled the summer of political correctness, or the summer of 2015, was nothing short of abysmal. But the things that Ann Coulter had tweeted out to her alleged 1.12 million followers is just amazing. But here's what she said. At 2:33 p.m. on the 22nd of November, she said, "Whoa, I thought we elected at real Donald Trump president. Did we make him the FBI and DOJ? His job is to pick these guys, not do their jobs." Well, yes, but that's part of the problem. That's part of why the venomous narrative that has become a new norm in the American system of polity must come to an end. It's because we're losing sight of what it is that unites us, what it is that brings us together. And the other thing is she basically went out and said against Nikki Haley that she was just this terrible person, and went on about her race as if that has anything to do with it. Again, yes, we understand that identity politics is sheer, unadulterated poison. It is the poison pill that threatens to tear this republic apart at its societal seams. But the way to address that is not to basically embrace everything that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists, who are hell-bent on the complete and utter annihilation of the United States of America, both as a nation and as a people, profess. Because then you're giving them ammunition. You are allowing them to use the tools that they are adept at using to try and smear conservatives, not just in this generation, but for generations to come. And again, we cannot give it up, because what I need and what you need and what we all need is to go back to basics in this country. That's one of the things that my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, has oft-times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. And it is something that we need to do. It is something that would give a breath of fresh air to us, allow us to clear our collective minds and focus again on the tasks of preserving and promoting liberty and the supreme law of the land, our shared United States Constitution. And that's exactly what a day like Thanksgiving is meant to accomplish and to achieve. It is why we have this. We are so fortunate, and therefore we are thankful for the bountiful gifts that we have received. But you do have to take a time out and profess that gratitude, and to reflect upon how it is and why it is that we have received the numerous and bountiful gifts that we have, both as a nation and as a people. And I know that's difficult in these fast-paced modern times in which we live. But to go forth and to proclaim hoaxes based on things that you disagree with, or based on a political position, that's certainly not the way to advance your goals. It's not going to make you come across as credible to the American people. It's not going to make you come across as someone who is even deserving of compassion, because you're trying to use your identity as a weapon. Well, it is well past time, high past time, that we get past that in this nation. It is time that we come together and say enough is enough. It is time to focus on the real issues that face us, so that we can overcome them, and so that we can continue to be the great people that we were always originally intended to be. And there are some very, very dangerous and trying things that are facing us. For instance, just a couple of days ago, there was a progressive pundit who went out and said that no white people should lead the Democrat Party. Again, this vicious, divisive identity politics and political correctness and moral relativism, they are all strangling the very lifeblood out of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and vibrant community of popular sovereigns of ours. This was just yesterday. It was published on the Politistick by Matthew Berg. And what we see is former Bernie Sanders spokeswoman and current CNN contributor Simone Sanders, no relation, went full-on racist Wednesday, stating that the next leader of the Democrat Party shouldn't be judged by the context of their character, but by the color of their skin. Now, is that not the direct opposite of what we were supposed to be doing? Is that not the direct opposite of what Martin Luther King had said? If you know, that was their most successful person. Again, the identity politics is beyond the pale. But it's important that we hear her say this, because you can't deny it. It's out there for everyone to see, and it's horrific. So I'm going to go ahead and cue it up.
Howard Dean, also in the running for DNC chairman. And I wonder what you think. You're a Keith Ellison person, having said,
No,
are you not? Are you not?
No, I've not thrown my. I know my former boss has thrown his weight.
Okay, well then actually this
Keith
is
Ellison,
okay. This is
but I have
even
not
better.
thrown my weight behind anyone
Then you're
in this
an even
race.
better person to ask this question of. You have Howard Dean and others who support
Jamie Harrison.
That's right, Jamie Harrison, and their line is that Keith Ellison, who is more to the left of these other guys, that he, since he's a sitting congressman, since it appears he wouldn't leave that position behind, W. Wasserman Schultz had worn the two hats. And they're saying, you know what, that doesn't work. That doesn't work wearing the two hats. Do you think that's a real criticism, or do you think that that's people trying to get some cover for not wanting someone who's so liberal to be at the helm of the party?
I think it's a little bit of both. I definitely think it is difficult when you have a chair that is a sitting member of Congress or has any kind of other job, because that's two sets of staff. There's DNC staff and then there's office staff. Whenever you want to get something done quickly, you just can't go through the DNC staff. You also have to go through whatever particular office staff. Look, I think Keith Ellison is great. I have worked with him. He is he is a fighter, and he's committed to the issues. But
Howard Dean,
Howard Dean was there for that 50-state strategy, but here's the issue. Howard Dean is also on record maligning young people and millennials, telling those Bernie folks they just need to get in line, and maligning Bernie Sanders. And that is not what we need, in my opinion. We don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now.
We don't need white people leading the Democrat Party. You know, folks, you just can't make that stuff up. That is not what we're thankful for. We must be thankful that enough of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this nation, we the people, are waking up to this drivel and are wholeheartedly rejecting it because it is so destructive, it is so hateful, it is so venomous. And therefore, we have to keep in mind that it's not the color of our skin, because we're all created equal by our Maker. Those are the self-evident truths. Those are the basics that we have to get back to in these United States of America. While Trump was out there on Thanksgiving, sitting there saying that we need to come together and speak with one voice as a nation and as a people, we know that that was a far cry from what his surrogates were preaching last week. In fact, in a rather shocking yet not unexpected style story, The Hill reports that Donald Trump's economic advisor, Stephen Moore, told a group of top Republicans last week that they now belong to a fundamentally different political party. Moore surprised some of the Republican lawmakers assembled at their closed-door whip meeting last Tuesday when he told them they should no longer think of themselves as belonging to the conservative party of Ronald Reagan. Now, yes, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have spoken about how during his second term of office, Ronald Reagan had backed away from the constitutional mandate that he had from his first term. But what this tells us is exactly the message that we have been warning you about for a year and almost 3 months now, folks. When we look at the way that the surrogates for the president-elect Donald J. Trump are trying to browbeat us into a tyranny of false unity, which is something that they did all throughout the campaign trail and season of this disastrous fiasco of a 2016 presidential election cycle, we see that, like the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists, they're looking to fundamentally transform the arena of American politics and to once again drive us away from being the traditional, constitutionally endowed, federalist, representative republic that we've all come to know and love. That's part of the danger that we're facing, both as a nation and as a people. It's part of why we said, do not allow yourselves to be whipped up into a state of histrionics and hysteria or raw emotionalism that will thereby allow you to be easily manipulated by these charlatans, hucksters, con artists, snake oil salesmen, and the like. But what Moore was saying reflects something greater. Yes, the American people turned to this sort of system because they were tired of politics as usual. They turned to this kind of system because the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, had violated the multitude of promises that they made in election cycle after successive election cycle. That is what bred and allowed this raw emotionalism to overcome the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours to disregard their deeply held principles and beliefs. It was because they were sick and tired of business as usual, of being betrayed. And that is what is going to make the betrayals of this coming presidency all the worse. But if there is one thing that we can remain thankful for on this Thanksgiving, it is that we, the people, are still the absolute ultimate popular sovereigns in this country. And that means that we still wield the reins of political power. But it means that we must be proactive in maintaining and safeguarding our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. It means that we can no longer continue to look for messianic figures to fill the reins of our political system and save us. Because by the very design of our republic, it is only we, the people, that can save us. And here's the other thing. The source of this story, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, said, "For God's sakes, it's Stephen Moore," explaining some of the lawmakers' reactions to Moore's statement. He's the guy who started the Club for Growth. He's Mr. Supply Side Economics. Well, this goes to a point that my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, and I have oft-times reiterated on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. When we look at the current state of affairs plaguing, ailing, and afflicting our beloved republic, the economy should not be the primary impetus of what it is we vote upon. Because the economy is but a mere symptom of the overarching ailment and illness that afflicts the United States and her people. And so the economists are the ones that are willing to turn their back on the Constitution. The economists are the ones that are willing to turn to frothing at the mouth Fabian socialism. And recall that that's what the great visionary Zygmunt Dobbs warned of with respect to, you guessed it, the School of Economics, the Keynesian School of Economics at Harvard University, in his magnus opus of Keynes at Harvard. He said that it was the School of Economics in which this whole strain of cultural Marxism and Fabianism were being unleashed upon the United States of America. And this was back in the 1950s and 60s. So this problem that we are encountering right here and right now, as I sit here speaking into this microphone, conveying this message unto you, is not a new problem. But it is a problem that has been exacerbated by the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, refusing to follow through on the myriad and multitude of promises that they've made in election cycle after successive election cycle. In other words, they have not been looking out for the best interest of the American people. They have not been dutifully keeping the promises that they made, and that has led to the alienation of huge swaths of the American electorate. And so here we are, facing the aftermath of the most heated, contentious, divisive, and dare I say personalized election cycles of all living memory. And the forces of division continue to march forth while proclaiming that we must all step in line of a tyranny of false unity. That does not bode well for what will be happening in the months and years to come. It tells me that what we are facing is a real danger. And one of the things that the article at The Hill went on to say, that this anonymous source quoted unto them, was, "I think it's going to take them a little time to process what does this all mean." The source added of the lawmakers, the vast majority of them were on the wrong side. They didn't think it was going to happen. Asked about his comments to the GOP lawmakers, Moore told The Hill he was giving them a dose of reality. What dose of reality is that, Mr. Moore? The dose of reality where most of the promises that President-elect Trump has made are actually contrary and violative of the supreme law of the land, which, pursuant to Article 6, Clause 2, is none other than our shared United States Constitution? What is it that maybe you are no different than the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who want to fundamentally and irreparably transform this republic to some sort of frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist dystopia? Because that is the reality I see. Maybe it's the reality of Trump walking back every promise of substance that he made on the campaign trail during this 2016 election. Maybe, just maybe, it is the realization that he is not who he claimed to be, just as yours truly has warned, my first officer Jeremy Grapenton, and indeed our first Air Marshal Mr. Nelson has warned on previous episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, over these past year and 2 months. Maybe that's the realization, but no, I don't believe that that is the realization of which he is speaking. He then went on to say, just as Reagan converted the GOP into a conservative party, Trump has converted the GOP into a populist working class party, Moore said. But what can we say about populism? Populism doesn't work. And it shouldn't just be focused on a particular class. It should be focused on all Americans, because when you look at the indelible language and damn near poetic language that Thomas Jefferson penned in our Declaration of Independence 240 plus years ago, it said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain fundamental and unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." That is something that is indissoluble. That is something that is immutable, meaning it is just as applicable today as it was 240 plus years ago when he penned them, as God willing it will be some 240 plus years from today. But what that means is that we, in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic, must put an end to all of these efforts to and divorce ourselves from the supreme law of the land, because that is what has led to the great plethora of problems that we have been facing both as a nation and as a people. That, Mr. Moore, is reality. But he doesn't care. And many of the Lion Branch Trumpvidians who continue to congregate in their Trumpvidian tabernacle are not going to believe that. They're going to say that this is just divisive drivel being pushed forth by the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. But no, this comes from the mouth of Trump's surrogate himself, Trump's chief principal economist, a man who once espoused conservative views, but like so many in this election cycle of betrayal and in the immediate aftermath of that election cycle of betrayal, he has sold out his principles. He has turned his back on the positions that he has held throughout the vast majority of his career in the public sector. Well, that's just par for the course of what we're facing in modern America today, ladies and gentlemen. It's just par for the course of why we must be ever diligent, now even more so than ever. Because what we're seeing right here and right now is the move to fundamentally abandon conservatism, but above all, constitutional compositionism, which will only lead to greater suffering of the nation, and is something that cannot nor should be tolerated. We won't tolerate it, because it is against everything that we hold near and dear. The Hill goes on to say that Moore has spent much of his career advocating for huge tax and spending cuts and free trade. He's been as close to a purist ideological conservative as they come. But he says the experience of traveling around Rust Belt states to support Trump has altered his politics. Quote, "It turned me more into a populist," close quote, he said, expressing frustration with the way some in the Beltway media dismiss the economic concerns of voters in states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. He went on, quote, having spent the last 3 or 4 months on the campaign trail, it opens your eyes to the everyday anxieties and financial stress people are facing, close quote, Moore added. I'm pro-immigration and pro-trade, but we better make sure as we pursue those policies, we are not creating economic undertow in these areas. Fine. Then we won't create economic undertows, because the way that you avoid creating economic undertows is to go back to the clear and concise language contained within the 4 corners of our shared United States Constitution. Again, this is why the economy per se should not be an ultimate issue. It is a penultimate concern, as it is merely reflective of one of the symptoms of the overarching disease that ails and afflicts this nation. These are the harsh realities that must be discussed, that must be considered in general parlance, but have been ignored by all sides of the political aisle for far too long now. And it is not showing any sign of improving within the foreseeable future. And therefore, it is, once again, as it was designed at the inception of this nation, the onus of having the duty, obligation, but above all, responsibility of maintaining this nation and bringing this nation back onto the path to prosperity on our shoulders, in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty of these United States of America. That is what we must do. But Moore had changed his politics, he said. And The Hill went on to say, after such a transformative experience and after witnessing Trump's stunning victory, Moore now believes Republican House members should be less ideologically pure and instead help Trump give the voters what he promised them. Wait a minute. In other words, what Moore is saying here is the same thing that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists have been saying, and that is that the United States of America is no longer a nation of laws, but is a nation of people. Instead of standing up for the fact that the United States is founded upon a philosophy, he wants it to be populist. Populism is the same sort of mantra that was championed by the totalitarian dictatorships that plagued Europe and the Far East during those dark and twisted days of the Second World War. Those were the ideologies that our parents and grandparents, and in some cases great-grandparents, were fighting against. That goes against the strains of liberty, justice, and a true sense of equality. Therefore, this transformative experience that Mr. Moore had is one in which he is abandoning the principles of these United States of America and is looking to transform us into something that we should never be. Folks, this is why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are the new resistance. It's why we are the voice of liberty. We will continue to advocate for and to promote the Constitution because, as we have so oft times reiterated on previous episodes of our state-of-the-art radio program, that is the key which will unlock the chains and shackles that have been inhibiting and holding back the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, we the people, irrespective of class, irrespective of race, irrespective of gender or religion. You see, when you have a rogue, tyrannical, and ultimately illegitimate government that is ignoring the supreme law of the land, that is when you see this type of chicanery become an established new norm in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And again, it is not something that we can just bow down and accept. It is not something to acquiesce to. It is not something to capitulate with. It is not something to collaborate with. What we should be doing in our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours is to hold Trump's feet to the fire. Because each and every time that he moves away from the Constitution, he is actually moving against the American people. For you see, when you look at the poetic language, the opening lines to the preamble to our shared United States Constitution, you see it says, "We the people." That means this government belongs to us, that the Constitution belongs to us, that all of it belongs to we the people. But that is certainly not the message that Moore was speaking of with this alleged transformative experience that he encountered while traveling the country and speaking to a very select segment of the country. The Rust Belt makes up but one part of these United States of America. And it was for that reason that we were established as a republic and not a direct democracy. That's the problem. Moore and those of his ilk have forgotten that the United States of America is a constitutionally endowed federalist representative Republican form of government. And that is what is going to be the undoing of this movement at some point. Because unlike the natural law tenets that underpin our shared United States Constitution, populism is but a passing political fad. It comes in waves. It cannot be a self-sustaining political ideology and philosophy. It is therefore ultimately doomed to failure. But Moore went on to say that, quote, he wants to spend all this money on infrastructure. And he was referencing Trump's potential $1 trillion infrastructure package. It's a massive spending bill that naturally appeals far more to Democrats than Republicans. Moore, who has worked for the ultra-conservative, according to The Hill, that's their spin, their editorialization, Heritage Foundation, is not a fan of the stimulus package, but he is prepared to support it. Quote, I don't want to spend all that money on infrastructure, Moore said. I think it's mostly a waste of money, but if the voters want it, they should get it. Wrong. Wrong. Because that is not the federal government's job. When you look at the tenets of federalism and the natural order of things, it is the state and local governments that are supposed to handle it. That is how our founding fathers would expect this system to work. That is what we should be promoting, but that is not what we're seeing with Moore, who is claimed as the great founder and father of supply-side economics. Well, he's abandoned that. By his own admission, by his own words, he has admitted to abandoning those principles. Then he goes on. If Trump says build a wall, then he should build a wall. If Trump says renegotiate TPP or the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, he should renegotiate TPP. Elections have consequences, Moore added. Yes, they do. And that's the same verbiage used by Barack Hussein Obama. So once again, we see that Trump will be the third term, the third disastrous term of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. And then he said, I used to be a unilateral free trader. But if somebody wants to sell something to us at less cost than we can produce it here, then do it. No. He says, but the political reality is there's a backlash against trade. Whether we like it or not, better adapt the rules in ways that benefit American workers more, or free trade is not going to flourish. Free trade cannot flourish under populism. It cannot. And that's part of the problem. It is part of that overarching problem with Trump that cannot, must not, and certainly we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, will not ignore it. Because again, it works against the greater attributes of who we are, both as a nation and as a people. This is the danger of every time that we start to abandon the principles and the supreme law of the land that have propelled this nation to such lofty heights in her relatively brief yet illustrious history. The danger is there and cannot be ignored. He said, "We can scream and whine all we want, but that's reality." No, that's not reality. The reality is that our Constitution is the longest contiguous or uninterrupted running constitutional document in the entire course of human events. And the reason that it is that it didn't go to populist strains, that it didn't allow itself to be subjected to the whims of passing fads. Why? Because the bedrock foundation of that document is based upon the natural law tenets, which by their very nature are timeless. That's why we spend so much time focusing on that. If we allowed ourselves to go down the populist winds, the United States of America would have never succeeded. We would have never secured our liberty. But because our founding fathers, and this is what we should truly be thankful for on Thanksgiving, believed in those immutable natural law tenets that we, the people, are the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty, and that we are endowed by our Creator, the God of nature himself, with fundamental and inalienable rights that no legitimate earthly authority without due process under the law can strip, deprive, or abridge us of. That is what allowed us to be a free people. That is what allowed us to be great. And so again, that is part of the reason why my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, and I have basically decried that shallow, hollow, empty, and meaningless platitude that was the campaign slogan of Donald Trump. It's because America never ceased being great. Again, we have to focus on what it was that made us great in the first place, and that is our shared United States Constitution. But people like Moore does not understand it. Moore is excited about large parts of Trump's agenda. He helped write Trump's tax plan and thinks the cuts will accelerate economic growth and create new jobs, as if it's the federal government's job to create jobs. He also had a hand in Trump's energy plan and looks forward to slashing regulations hindering American energy production. But Moore knows the days of Reaganite conservatism are probably over. And he said, quote, "Reagan ran as an ideological conservative. Trump ran as an economic populist. Trump's victory turned it into Trump party. Then it is not our party. Then it is not the party of the voice of the Constitution, and therefore it is a party that should be doomed to failure." But we don't want this to fail. We want all Americans to succeed, and the way that all Americans can succeed, the only way that all Americans can succeed, is for us to return back to strict adherence to the Constitution at all levels of government. That is going to be the lesson that will be hard learned. That will be the legacy not only of the two disastrous terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime, but of this new rising Trump regime as well. And that is why we, both as a nation and as a people, cannot back away from our duty, obligation, but above all, responsibility to maintain our liberties and to hold these politicians and their surrogates accountable for their words, deeds, and actions. Because again, by the very design of this constitutionally endowed federalist representative republic of ours, that is the only way we can achieve this. No one else is endowed with the authority. No one else has the wherewithal to accomplish that. It is strictly our duty, obligation, and responsibility to do this. And stop and think about just how empowering that message actually is, folks. This is why we say that it is absolutely imperative for us all to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution and thereby our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. That is the path of liberty. That is the path of greatness. That is the path to restoration of the United States, to the path to prosperity that we all long to see her restored to. And of course, that is the reality that escapes Mr. Moore. Shame on you, Mr. Moore. Despite that, I hope that you come to realize this harsh reality that is there, and will join true dyed-in-the-wool constitutional compositionists once again as we strive to restore the United States of America back onto the path of prosperity. Now, with that said, let me wish you once again a very happy Thanksgiving from all of us here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. It is time for us to begin our descent for this special Thanksgiving flight. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for a round of eggnog and a piece of turkey, mashed potatoes, and dressing. As always, folks, thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. Should you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or even topic suggestions for future state-of-the-art radio programs here, feel free to leave them here at YouTube in the comment section, or on our Google Plus page, or our Facebook page, or please also feel free to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, folks, that's at Radio Aviation EX, and there you will find the departure board that lists my Twitter account, the Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, and you will also find links to the Blogspot page where I've fallen a little bit behind, but what I'm doing there, folks, is putting up extra links to our videos as well as audio-only versions of our state-of-the-art radio program so that you can watch them or listen to them however you so choose and at your leisure. And then, folks, there is the Cafe Press account. At the Cafe Press account, as you're entering into this holiday season, you'll find all sorts of wonderful stocking stuffers, from hats, shoes, drinking glasses, mugs, apparel, jewelry, bumper stickers, laptop sleeves and protectors, phone sleeve and protectors, tote bags, you name it, it's there at reasonable prices and makes a great holiday gift for your family, friends, and loved ones. I'm going to leave a description of it also, folks, in today's video. Thank you again for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We will see you again next time. Please do take care.